this very, very clear to that staff. I don't know exactly how to get a hold of the guy, right? And this has been ongoing for a long time. So when he says, "Oh, I've never heard of this guy trying to get a hold of me," it's like, well, we did. whether you have heard it or not doesn't mean it's not true. So my proposal is just this: why don't we do an IRL debate in Santa Barbara, California?
Andrew Wilson answers the challenge to debate Sam Seder. Andrew Wilson finally addresses Sam Seder, gives his thoughts on if the debate can happen or not. This is on the Not One Step Back podcast that he hosts alongside Lord Jake Rattlesnake. Let's see what Andrew Wilson has to say on a potential debate against Sam Seder.
All right, to the next topic, we've got Sam Seder, who you and I covered on a show recently, and then they called...
I love the picture that they chose. Look at this picture. What was this, back 20 years ago when he was like 40 years old, probably?
Us out, but more specifically you to come and to have a debate with him, particularly on economics. We graciously accepted the offer, and I've commented on his things a few times and said, Sam, you're welcome. Just get one of your people to reach out to us. We will organize it. You can come on the show. But I think that it would probably be better for you to do it in an in-person setting on whatever. But tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Well, Sam notoriously is known for cheating. He's known for being in a studio where he has an earpiece in and people are live feeding him answers. I can demonstrate this fairly easily by just pointing you over to his recent Jubilee episode, where without having a support group behind him, he didn't do very well at all. Not at all. In fact, one guy went in there and just on normative ethical claims completely destroyed him. I think that you covered that as well.
Yeah, Eliezer, he's a friend of mine, a friend of the channel as well. And I think you've actually been on a panel with us before. You've been in one of the things.
He was completely disconnected when it came to some of the various ideas that are going on in culture, right? Instead, he wants to gripe and complain as though I don't understand what marginal taxes are. I have no idea where he came up with that, at least not from that clip, because we were diving into something completely different. But the thing is like, I'm happy to take the debate with Sam Seder. I said this multiple times. Now, the first criticism I get is, well, Sam said, well, I've never heard anything from these guys. It's all over his Twitter. That's one. And two, through Tim Pool, Tim Pool has several recruiters for his show, The Culture War. And then he also has a recruiter for his actual show, which is Timcast IRL. I've been on both of these shows, so has Seder. And I have talked to the recruiters multiple times and told them Sam Seder is one of the kind of top guys on the left that I'd like to debate. I've made this very, very clear to that staff. I don't know exactly how to get a hold of the guy, right? And this has been ongoing for a long time. So when he says, "Oh, I've never heard of this guy trying to get a hold of me," it's like, well, we did. whether you have heard it or not doesn't mean it's not true. So my proposal is just this: why don't we do an IRL debate in Santa Barbara, California? There's a studio that's all set up there already, which is used to hosting such debates. If you are concerned about there being some type of moderation, which is unfair, you can bring along a moderator with you, right? And then you can co-moderate with the other moderator who's there. That way we know that it's completely fair. I will cover your expenses, Sam. I will cover your expenses to California. I'll cover your hotel room while you stay for the debate, and I'll cover your flight home. I'll even cover your food while you're there, right? You can't possibly be any more good faith than that. However, I'm not going to allow cheating in a debate by having a support team behind you feeding you answers. So as long as it's me versus you and not me versus you and your whole studio plus Google, then I'm happy to do the debate. So I'd like to do it IRL. I'd like to do it moderated. And I'd like to pick a few different topics. Economics can be one of them, of course. And I will pay for all of that. I'll pay for it all. So if you come, you show up, you do it, I'll reimburse you for all of that, every bit of it. So, and I'll do it before you even leave. So
Andrew Wilson officially putting out there the challenge to Sam Seder in a debate. You know, all the Sam Seder nights were like, oh my gosh, Andrew Wilson is too scared to debate Sam Seder. Andrew Wilson will get destroyed by Sam Seder. And then us people here in the real world, no, that's just not true. Why would Andrew Wilson be scared to debate Sam Seder? This would be like Michael Jordan being scared to compete against a elementary school basketball player. And Sam Seder doesn't have any excuses. He can't say, well, I don't have enough money to do it. No, Andrew Wilson will cover the expenses. Well, they're going to obviously choose a biased moderator. Well, no, Andrew Wilson said he could bring his own moderator to help him out, just as long as it's not his whole team of cronies. The only thing I could see Sam Seder trying to weasel out of it is Sam Seder saying like, well, I want to be able to choose the topics. Because as we all have seen by his topic choosing on the Jubilee special, no doubt he wants to choose topics where he could make them fully loaded. If you made the debate topics neutral, I don't think Sam Seder would like that. He needs them loaded up, more loaded than fries that have cheese and bacon on them.
I'm making that public. Jake, he'll vouch that of course we'll do this, right? We definitely want to do the debate. Couldn't be any more good faith than that. I guarantee there'll be somewhere between 10 and 15,000 live viewers. This debate will probably get seen hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. So I highly suggest you do it, and you better bring some backup with your claim that I'm a grifter too. So that'll come up during the debate too, Sammy, because we have a whole lot of tape of you, which I would say proves just the opposite, that perhaps you're the grifter. But
well, that's the left. The left likes to throw that grifter claim around. They like to throw racist around. They like to throw bigot around, transphobe, all these things, all these phobes. A grifter is another one. Everyone on the right's a grifter. You don't have to listen to them because they're just grifting you. Even though you could make a lot more money just grifting left-wing point of views. I mean, all these speakers and book writers do it all the time. Where if you're a right-winger, you have a big chance that some of their stuff might not even get platformed at one point. But still, everyone on the right wing's a grifter. Even though Sam Seder is someone that makes good money with his left-wing views, like obviously the guy doesn't mind making lots of money and being rich, but yet he will sit there and tell you all day, actually, no, it's wrong. We should actually tax a marginal tax. Anything past 3 million gets taxed 90%. So his worldview is that, no, it's actually bad to make a lot of money. All these millionaire and billionaires are just hoarding money, and there should be no reason they should have all this money, and that we should tax all these people a ton of money. So he's actually making a lot of money, telling you that it's bad to make a lot of money.
Dive into it with him.
Yeah, and in terms of his debate with Eleazar and with also Sarah, two of the videos that went more viral, I think, so from my perspective, he didn't really know what he was talking about in the ethical debate. That was quite obvious. But he was happy to lean into what they were saying because he was taking the stance of, okay, well, you're just admitting you're a Christian nationalist. You're just admitting that you want authoritarianism and all these sorts of things. So do you think that that was a tactic, or do you think that it was more that he just genuinely didn't know, or he was or do you think that he was helping or trying to lead them into saying the wrong things that he perceived would come off as really badly?
Seder is disconnected, much like his co-host, from culture. They're completely disconnected from it. So it used to be a pretty trendy thing to be like, so you admit that you believe this thing that is no longer cultural taboo. Christian nationalism, Christian populism is not cultural taboo. I don't know if they remember this, but Trump is the president of the United States. The entire smear campaign that he was a Nazi and a rapist and and a this and a that, none of it worked. None of it worked, right? So just doing so you admit that you endorse Trump. Yeah, me and the majority of the nation who voted for him, right, endorse him. So the thing is that sort of like low tier, so you admit it? Yes, that used to be a viable tactic which worked. You'd see this from other creators too, like Vosh and many of the left-wing creators. So you admit that and now people are like, well, yeah, of course I admit that. So it's just a disconnect from culture. He doesn't have any arguments. It's just when people hear this, they're going to be shocked. And it's like, no, they're not shocked. You're just not up to the date with the culture. You're just not there.
I mean, yes, they're still relying on their old tactics of calling everyone a Nazi, calling everyone hateful and bigots and all these things that don't believe a certain way. They're still in that. One thing I'll give credit to Cenk Uygur for, and this is a very small credit, is that at least he recognized that the tide is turning, the culture is turning, and while he's still a buffoon, and while he's still a left-wing buffoon, he at least kind of switched his narrative a little bit to now where it's like, oh, see, I'm fighting truth to power. I'm fighting against the establishment Democrats and the donors. And he's going more toward a left-wing populist view, and you could tell he's kind of toning down the culture rhetoric, like about trans issues or whatnot, which is why he's taking heat from all these other left-wing wackos like Francesca Fiorentini and the Majority Report, all these people. He's taking heat from the people that are still stuck in this extreme left-wing space.
Yeah, I mean, how did you think that that exchange went with him and Eleazar? Because I thought it was an absolute drubbing, and he didn't even know. Like, Eleazar offered him his own position and said, so you're a consequentialist, so you're a utilitarian. And he goes, oh, well, I don't really concern myself with... I mean,
I don't concern myself with how I ground my ethics or ethical questions whatsoever. Yet I talk all day long on my show about how what other people are doing is immoral. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, you must think about ethics. You must think about morals. You must think about that all the time, because most of what you do is talk about how this person bad, this policy bad, this thing over here bad. Those are all normative claims. Bad, evil, right? Not good. These things are all normative claims. So all that guy did was come on and just hold up a mirror. And he was like, well, what standard are you even judging anybody from? And he was like, well, I'm judging him from the standard of I'm old. I'm judging him from the standard of I'm really old, and that standard. It's just like, well, that didn't do anything for him, and it was totally humiliating. And I don't even think that Seder understands how badly he was humiliated there.
Sam Seder, and I think a lot of these people actually have never even. Well, I think most people have never even pondered that whole thing, the whole preferences thing. That's why. After this debate, which they'll actually show in a little bit, it's kind of gaining mainstream traction because actually people have never really thought about this stuff before, let alone the left-wingers who sit there and be like, you're evil because you want to force this morality on me. And it's like, well, you also want to force your morality on us. But at least we have a long-standing code of ethics that have lasted for thousands of years. You guys, it's just however you guys feel at the moment. And we try to point this stuff out to you. That's why we bring up things like the family love or, necrophilia and these things. And you guys sit there and be like, well, that's icky. That's gross. That's silly. We would never do that. Okay. Well, if 100 years ago, we would have told people, hey, did you know that homosexuality would be accepted in society and actually promoted and also, too, they would be allowed to get married 100 years ago. They would have been like, well, that's icky. That's icky. That's silly. That's gross. But now the preferences have changed, and now that's acceptable. So who knows if in another 100 years or so, someone could travel back in time from 100 years from now, come back to us and be like, hey, did you guys know that it's actually acceptable for a brother and sister to get married with each other and consummate and procreate? That's actually mainstream now. It's actually, there's family love characters in TV shows now. It's mainstream. We would be like, what? That's icky. That's gross. Because human preferences change all the time. There's no solid foundation there. I mean, think about you as people. Your preferences are different from 10 years ago. So think of that as a way, as a species, as a society now, how our preferences just shift as time goes on. And I don't think any of these lefties have really sat there and thought about that.
I don't think so either. And I know for a fact, obviously, Eleazar's a friend of mine, that he's a big fan of the Crucible as well. So how does it feel to see some of your arguments being plugged in? And then, I don't know if you've seen, but there's like Michael Knowles has reacted to it and he was like, wow, this guy's coming and sort of challenging his philosophical presuppositions. And then Andrew Schultz did a reaction as well where he said, this is really interesting. I might actually try and pull that up for you.
Yeah, well, right. So it's interesting when my arguments are used, right? Except when I'm using them, because then Michael Knowles will have to acknowledge, like, okay, well, I guess I guess this guy kind of has a lot of really good points in this and that. But if anybody's confused about whether or not that's true, that he was utilizing arguments that he learned from me, um, here's what he said to me. Thank you, brother, for the kind words and the shout out. I definitely built my arguments off of all of your foundations, though I did give it some of my own twist. So thank you for everything. I'm going on. Well, I'm not going to repeat any more of that, but and he credited me publicly on Twitter, and he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this guy, he doesn't owe me anything, and arguments are there for everybody, right? They're there for people. I don't gatekeep. So like they're there. I don't demand credit. They're there for everybody to use. They're there for people to improve upon. They're there for them to put their own twist on. He recently released a short where he was talking about force doctrine. And I was like, wow, this a lot of people are catching on with this, and you can see how effective it is when it's utilized in the mainstream. And now thousands of people have taken my arguments and are doing that, which is great. So I wish the guy nothing but success and the very best, and I hope he keeps on decimating.
Yeah. This is the clip that he shared of Andrew Schultz.
Like Sam Seder, who was sitting down, and then there's this like Latino kid who sits like across from him, and he's having this argument about like the importance, I guess, of morality. And I think Sam, he was like asking where his morality comes from. I mean, we can probably bring up a clip, or it doesn't matter. But it was interesting, this take that he had, like that you need a religious foundation for your morality. Otherwise, you end up just justifying whatever makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And you can't just keep doing whatever makes you feel.
I mean, where have we heard that one before, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. The thing is, though, is again, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time tooting my own horn on this. So, but I am very glad to see him, and he's absolutely right. Right. So he's 100% correct that the idea of my preference is always just a justification for the next form of degeneracy. It always is, and it always will be. So the whole idea here is because I think it's good because it feels good. It's good, and so I don't know how many times I've said this. These people never want to expand rights for anything useful. They only ever want to expand rights for degeneracy. That's it. I've never seen anybody make a proposition for a new right that wasn't built around the most degenerate shit that you can possibly think of. And so that's what these people do. He's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. It's good to see that your arguments are sort of coming into the ether like that and like really spreading amongst people who wouldn't really normally think about it from this level. And when I started watching The Crucible, that was definitely something that was extremely convincing. And when we first had our first podcast conversation, that the arguments are just extremely convincing. And then what I like to do is obviously watch debates and analyze debates. And then I was like, all right, well, let me see if anyone can really rebut these arguments. And so far, I haven't heard a better argument. I haven't heard any better justifications. So it's really good.
Yeah, no, it really is great to see. And, I've been covering these debates, these Andrew Wilson debates, and just in general, these Christians versus the secular humanists. And they're really great debates. And it's good to see Christianity kind of making a comeback after being mocked and ousted in the mainstream. And it's because of these arguments. They bring up Michael Knowles, and I used to be a big fan of Michael Knowles. He was one of the people that I think he was like the only person I really watched consistently in the Daily Wire because Michael Knowles is a smart dude, but I haven't really watched him that much anymore. But Andrew Wilson talks about Michael Knowles, and he was like, yeah, it's crazy because you have to acknowledge they're my arguments, and then he kind of I don't know, it seemed like he was kind of insinuating that Andrew Wilson isn't kind of really looked highly upon in this community. I mean, I don't know if Michael Knowles knows of Andrew Wilson or not, and I don't know his views on Andrew Wilson or not, or how these I don't know how to put it, but these big conners, I guess, big con people, that's the only way I could put it, like people like Daily Wire, people that are kind of becoming more mainstream conservative now. And then you have Andrew Wilson here, who's kind of like I wouldn't call him underground, but he's kind of like he's kind of the new alternative conservative, kind of, where before Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh, all these people were kind of seen as like the alternative. Well, now Andrew Wilson's kind of the alternative, but I don't know. Is Andrew Wilson kind of like, is he like excluded in these circles, or like what? How goes it? Or is it because he's not in the cool kids club? Like I'm curious to see how that dynamic is, I guess. But since I've started paying more attention to Andrew Wilson, because I've covered his stuff before. I've covered his stuff before as my channel was growing, but I never paid too close of attention to him, and I didn't really know much about him. And then when I saw his debate against Diddley Donger, I believe that's the one that kind of like converted me into a big Andrew Wilson fan, because that's the first time I've heard these arguments about the preferences. She absolutely had no idea what she was talking about, and it's like she never had this deep thought in her life before. And then when he goes up against a more established atheist like a Matt Dillahunty, and even before the debate begins, Matt Dillahunty like rage quits because he couldn't even handle any of the arguments Andrew Wilson gave. That's when I became a really big fan. Like Andrew Wilson, I absolutely believe like he deserves a lot of credit in getting this movement going, or at least in it picking up the popularity. And because of him, I've heard of now Lord Jake Rattlesnake over here, Jim Bob, like all these people through Andrew Wilson. And I think this is like the next generation of the conservatives that are on the rise. And if you want to see their rise, I advise you to watch my channel, because I'll be covering all of it. So if you like this stuff, subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, what do you think? Do you think Sam Seder is going to answer Andrew Wilson's challenge? Or do you think he's going to cower away and pretend like, I never got any emails? I never got any emails. Is it in my spam folder? I never got this stuff. Do you think he's going to play stupid and be like, I never got it? Or do you think he's going to come up with some conditions that are going to be ridiculous to be met? I don't know, but do you think it's going to happen? Sound off in the comment section below. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this, and if you really enjoyed it, like I said, consider subscribing to my channel. I got a whole bunch more stuff like this that you could binge on and enjoy.